can. Bigger, bolder, faster. Ooh, I'm going to the maximum. I'm going to the maximum. I'm going to the maximum.
Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, let's start. So we'll be talking about what investors look for in Web3 and Metaverse business. But before we start, I'd like to ask you guys to introduce yourself. Let's do this by age. No, just kidding. Let's do this by experience. But before you introduce yourself, maybe I want to ask this question. What do you think about the investment atmosphere in Web3 in the last 3 months, 6 months, maybe last 12 months, so that we get away with the hindsight or recency bias? Jay?
So current investment sentiment at this market in Web3 is very bad, I have to admit. I got into Web3 diversified investments since mid last year. So it's been almost a year and a half. So I can only say so much about it. But there were so much different issues. Those have been rise everywhere in the world, including FTX. So within this short amount of time, I should say, it wasn't very, very nice.
I will add on to that it's not bad. It's actually much more cautious in making decisions on investment by the institutional VCs. On one end, I'm seeing a lot of Web3 fund being set up by traditional VCs and family offices coming into the Web3. And the fund size is not small, like a few million. And we're talking about hundreds of millions and in billions terms of fund that is designed and dedicated to invest into Web3. So on one hand, there's a bearish market in the crypto market. And one end, we have a lot of new wave of Web3 investors coming into the space.
Yeah. So we also, so for the startup perspective, a lot of the startups are having very hard time to raise funds these days. We call it a severe winter. And then, so that's how it is right now.
Is it the same sentiment you experienced maybe 12 months ago? How different are things maybe in November of this time last year? At least crypto market was way up. Is there and now, as Rico mentioned, it's a risks on approach for everyone. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on, you mentioned family offices, valuation, 100 millions of funds in $100 million. How do you value Web3 investment in this space?
I would say is the stage they are in. Are they at the proof of concept stage, pre-MVP, post-MVP? Is the product live? Are they revenue generated? All these sort of indications decides the valuation of the companies. So we have project coming to raise 20 million for Web3 project, probably at the pre-MVP stage. And then we will ask them, how much do you invest? Why are you raising 20 million in such a market condition? Why are you building? If you are doing a Series A, or pre-A, and you're looking to scale into 5 major markets, then it makes sense if you raise that amount of money. If you're building an infrastructure layer at layer 0, layer 1, then even at the seed level, it makes sense. But it all depends on what are they building in terms of what Web3 or Metaverses or infrastructure layers for data storages, for protocols. So it all depends on what is a product. What expertise do you need? What's the cost of building those sort of things? Is there hardware involved, software involved, licenses involved? So we will look into all these sort of tangents before we decide.
That's interesting. I'll circle back to that one later, but I wanted to ask Jay, who's been in the traditional Web2 space since forever. And we were talking backstage. You said this is the kind of area you're comfortable with, and you're moving into Web3. Can you share with us your experience and how things are going in this space for you?
Sure. So I've been an investor last 14 years. I run No LP, just a private fund in Singapore. So we do a lot of startup based on deep tech, SaaS, e-commerce, marketing, advertising. Those were our field. I also run and be part of a private equity fund called Unreasonable, based in New York. And we do a lot of ESG and impact. So that was my life until May last year. I became bullish on Web3 out of my personal passion first. I jumped into the rabbit hole while I had some time to actually go over this very seriously. So I started investing into a few DeFi and then moved on to play to earn game where everybody was investing heavily on that. And then I moved to a little bit of a PFP and then moved to marketplace, so on and so forth. So when I talk about my past year or year and a half of investments of Web3, it sounds like a long history, but I can't imagine. I look back, I felt like almost like 5 to 10 years passed. That's how fast everything moved forward in Web3. And I can't speak for the times before I joined and started investing on Web3, but what I've been feeling so far, the differences between Web2 space and Web3 space is that a lot of the market makers and movers in Web3, they have a much shorter cycle of hyping up or rising up and go down. Yeah, which can be super volatile, but at the same time create a lot of opportunities too.
Exactly. So interesting point. But let me ask Louis first. Why do you think entrepreneurs such as you should invest in this space, Web3 and Metaverse?
Okay. So in order to answer this question, I think I need to bring up a little bit of my past. Is that I used to be a venture capitalist over 8 years. Used to work at Samsung Ventures. And then I started looking into crypto back in 2016, 2017, and then that's when I got interested and then making private investments on that. And then so I kind of like experienced like from the beginning of this ICO stage to DeFi, to NFT, P2E, all that, and then I personally made all the investments, and although at the company level and personal level, and then I decided to jump in as an entrepreneur in 2018, and then I founded my company because I saw the movement and the future vision of what NFT or blockchain technology can do to disrupt, I would say, the Web2 industry, because Web2 industry has been there for a long time, but then it's been having problems, always, like for platforms, like selling data and everything. So I think that's what got into people and companies that there needs to be a change. And like now with NFT, but the blockchain was not enough to get to the mainstream, So NFT came, and then all these big companies coming in, like Nike and all this, like Microsoft and everyone. So like finally we are at the stage to getting closer to the public, and then still like a lot of big guys, giants are making investments, and then there's got to be definitely a future they see. So entrepreneurs is the same, like startups got a chance in the new industry. That's why I decided to become an entrepreneur myself, and
I want to dig deeper into that, but we only have 11 more minutes, so.
Sorry, I kept trying to keep it short.
No, that's very interesting, because I think you mentioned this, as people get into Web3, it's not just VCs, funds, brands, but also the consumer. And the biggest challenge is bringing them there from where they are in Web 2. Now, so as I mentioned, I want to circle back to Rico, and maybe in your experience, can you share with the group, can you provide an example of a successful Web3 or Metaverse investment? Does it have to be in the last 6 months? Maybe what you've seen globally that you can share?
Yes, we invest into Web3 and Metaverse infrastructure. Well, after the DeFi hype in 2020, where everything is open source, anyone can build a DEX, and that's the hype of the app. And a lot of staking mechanisms, where we are looking at how digital wallet can replace digital banks and banking solutions. We invest into a lot of those midware SaaS tech as API integrated to integrate more users and mass adoption of the users to come into crypto. We also invest primarily into NFT marketplaces, not NFTs, so to speak, because we don't see some of the values of NFTs being sustainable. The way they market make it, the way they create a hype, there's not enough utility of the NFTs yet. And where we see the marketplace or the infrastructure can actually integrate with different utilities for those entities. And that's where we see the value of investing into those platforms. So it's platform-based, consumer-based, and integration-based of businesses. For metaverses, we are only looking into gamification and education sector because we see the real use of metaverses and the digital assets in the metaverses, such as game assets, where we see gamers using it every day when they play the game. So those are the basic requirements of what we are looking to invest in the next 1 to 2 years or 5 years, because we don't see metaverses or Web3 as a mature market in the next 10 years. So we're looking at something that is going on very basic of Web 2.1, Web 2.2, and building the infrastructure around that. We are looking into investing into live stream infrastructure for gaming because we don't see that yet mature enough to support the future of Web3. And that is about user experience, the user journey, acquisitions, and making it designed for mass market rather than focusing on the crypto current users. So I think that's where we invest a lot in the last couple of months, and that's what we are looking to invest in the next few years. We have a separate fund for different mandate. So we have Deep Tech that's purely equity based. We have infrastructure, ESG, impact, philanthropic based funds, and we also have very commercial driven funds. So we segregate in a way that we invest using different portfolios funds.
And in these 3 funds, you choose, like for Metaverse, for GameFi, you have a fund for that. For education, you have a fund for that as well. That's interesting. Maybe I want to circle back to Jay, and as Rico mentioned, there are a lot of opportunities, but for your side, what are some of the opportunities you're seeing associated in investing in this space?
That's a very good question, because I've been thinking that question, top of my mind for a while. I have a very big limitation in understanding what's happening, to be honest, because I've been in this scene just for a while. But what I'm trying to do, maybe I'm trying hard to do, is find these areas where Web 2 and Web 3 are embedding at the moment, because I see a lot of these opportunities are happening at the moment, whereas a lot of growing Web 2 companies who's been doing quite well in the scene, because of the frozen capital market situation, they're alternatively looking for a chance to onboard Web 3. These are the areas that I've been looking at very seriously, at the same time, opportunistic way. So I've been exploring an e-commerce company based off in America, for example, who's embedding the function of watch to earn. But it's nothing like token economics that all the Web3 companies are creating, but they're trying to bring a lot of the functions adopting from TikTok, plus a new way of people to get compensated while watching the live sales.
Videos, yeah.
So these things, I find it very, very interesting. And I feel, or I have an educated guess that this industry itself will grow no matter the situation of the market goes bull or bear.
Perfect. So let me just ask Louis this, being also an entrepreneur, and I guess a lot of the people in the audience will be curious, and I can share my 2 cents here, but how can you protect your investment? It could be general. I think investment is investment, Web3, Web2, Metaverse, but can you share your thoughts being in this space?
That's a hard question. I mean, the bottom line is that whatever business model we have to make it sustainable. And then Jay just mentioned an interesting tokenomics. I mean, up until now, I've been looking at like tokenomics for like 5 years. But then there's a trend. Like in the beginning, like you just write down like 5 sentences and people invest, right? But then now people get smarter, so they know how to verify stuff now. So
Exactly.
yeah. So in terms of tokenomics, it's keeps on evolving because, like, looking at FTX, a lot of investors lost their money, but then now they're learning from those mistakes and then they're improving the tokenomics and everything. So I think that could help saving our investors. I think tokenomics is one of the key factors that we need to pay attention to.
you mentioned a very interesting point on investors getting smarter. I think the point we have to drive here is people should learn about the risk that they're getting into, not just as VCs. I mean, I'm sure as big as you guys are, you've been rag pulled one way or another. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But again, for the audience, it's very important to understand the kind of risks that's involved in investing, not just in Web3, but in general. So in the time that we have remaining, I want to ask everyone, and you can answer, anyone can go first. What's your advice for entrepreneurs who are looking to invest in Web3 or Metaverse? And let me add something to this. Maybe what's your advice to projects to make them more attractive for VCs like you?
I'll go first. If I were to invest into your project, I would like to see how hungry you are to be successful. It's not about how smart or how experienced you are first. That's important too. But the hungriness of the entrepreneur, the eagerness to be successful and eagerness to have critical thinking and eagerness to learn what's the latest, what are the competitors, who are they in the market they might be competing with, the aggressiveness to go to the market, the aggressiveness of innovation and execution, the speed of everything. It all depends on the person's hungriness and attitude. So that's number one factor for me to decide whether to invest, because we are investing into people in a way. Secondly, this is where all the other things must fall into the checklist, so to speak, not in a very structural way, but it's important to have a checklist to justify why would this project make sense in terms of its business model, its revenue generation structures, the adoption, go-to-market strategy, the cost of building the whole the tech stack. Is it sustainable? Who are the current players that you'll be competing against? Is this a monopolized market already? I give an example. We have projects coming to us, they are very, very awesome, but then we realize that that market is monopolized already in, for example, music industry. You want to make music NFT. How are you going to compete with the big boys, for example, in the States, in Hollywood, Bollywood, everywhere? So that market itself is so hard to penetrate. If you want to invest into social e-commerce platform, the big boys are there, we're speaking of billions of marketing fees. How are you going to compete? Those are the things that we will come into considerations, of course, when we decide. So when we look into entrepreneurs who want to solve a problem, please look into all these market conditions and competitors that you are competing against, and then have a very realistic stage and ideas and innovations to disrupt them, so that we can see that, hey, these guys are going to make it because they are hungry enough. The big boys are not hungry anymore. They can dump millions and billions, but the big boys may not go anywhere. But because of how fast the startup can actually overtake some of the traditional big corporates, they stand a chance to disrupt the market, and they can actually make it. So those are things I would be advising to the general public about.
That's excellent. I hope you guys were taking down notes. Jay?
So from investors' perspective, I'd want to interact a little bit with the audience, is that we're actually observing very, very interesting era that we have never been to. That's what I've been seeing for the last couple of years. What I mean to say that very interesting things are moving forward is, for example, we've never seen a company that has been listed in the market, like for example Tesla, that is moving towards to the direction of Web3. Is Tesla an AI company or automotive company? What if they adopt Dogecoin or Bitcoin as a mode of a currency? Is it a Web3 company or blockchain company? So this convergence and amalgamation of all these companies are happening at the moment. So for investors' perspective, to look at the right portfolio in macro level is always, do not try to draw where's the line between Web 2 and Web 3, because I've seen a lot of currently growing Web 2 companies are onboarding Web 3 and vice versa. So I feel that all this various companies' direction towards going to adopt the new technology is, the line of Web 2 and Web 3 is getting thinner and thinner.
Yeah.
So we need to really focus on customers' behavior or market behavior rather than are we defining this company as a Web 2 or Web 3. I've seen ton of money flowing into traditional market, looked for opportunities to invest in Web3. Unfortunately, it has been a little bit frozen. But those things will happen remarkably in the next 1 or 2, 3 years. From a prospective entrepreneur, although I can't say so much, I think they need to look for a way to finance their project more creatively. So they can look for a VC and PE traditionally, they can look for a private investor, they can look for a strategic investor. At the same time, they can still fund their project through NFT or token economics and so much and so forth. So this is an interesting situation because we're at the bear market. At the same time, we're seeing a ton of opportunities flying in the market too.
Yeah. Thanks, Jay. Louis?
Well, okay, I think Rico and Jay mentioned really good remarks, so I'm just gonna end up with the personal opinion on
Please,
that.
please.
Yeah, from a past experience, I invested in DeFi big time, and I lost big time. So I mean, I paid a lot of tuition fee, and then from out of that experience, I learned a lot of things, and then I made like 3x, 5x next time I invested my money. So I mean, this industry is moving so fast, and then there are a lot of projects gonna fool you. Yeah, they're gonna be there all the time, all the time. So like I said, getting smarter is the only way to earn money, I guess. Yeah, I truly believe that. And then I was fooled by the
For sure.
yeah stuff, and then yeah. So yeah, I think that's my opinion.
Okay, so that's all the time we have for this afternoon. But I want to summarize what they all just said. For Rico, it's all about passion in the project. And I'm summarizing this for you guys. If you want to pitch to this, guys. For Jay, it's about being more creative in your funding. Those are my key takeaways. And for Louis, it's really about being smart with your investment. So with that, I'd like to thank you, everyone. Thank you to our panelists this afternoon.